She married a man who never touched her, never kissed her, never slept beside her, yet every man who looked at her too long vanished. This was not a marriage, it was a warning, because when a cold man begins to want, someone always dies. Aria Duvall's life was a gilded cage. The Duvall mansion stretched across the hilltop, its marble floors gleaming in the morning sun, high ceilings, crystal chandeliers, expensive art lining the walls. It was a palace fit for royalty, but Aria felt trapped. Her days were planned to the minute. Dress rehearsals for appearances, lessons in etiquette, piano practice, art history, languages, everything to mold her into the perfect heir of the Duvall name. Friendship, rare. Laughter, monitored. Even going out meant layers of veils, gloves, and guards. Her father's words echoed constantly. You are not ordinary, Aria. Every glance, every word, every smile is a weapon. Use it wisely, or it will destroy you. She would often stand on the balcony at night, veil over her face, watching the city lights flicker below. She longed for the life she only glimpsed from afar. Ivan Marino was the one person who made her world feel less like a prison. They had met in college, when the world was slightly more forgiving, and they had shared stolen smiles, whispered jokes, and lingering glances, but reality had drawn a line. He was poor. She was a Duvall. He could never belong in her world, yet he never gave up. He sent small notes, gifts he could afford, sometimes leaving them where she might see them, and he watched, always watched, sometimes from the street, sometimes from a distance, just to be near her. The guards didn't notice him. The mansion walls might have, but they could not stop the heart. Every glance between them carried silent longing, every stolen smile a promise that neither dared speak aloud. Richard Duvall ruled the household like a general commanding an army. Nothing escaped his notice. Every smile, every word, every misstep was observed. He loved Aria fiercely, but love in the Duvall world was measured, restrained, and often harsh. You will not be seen without a veil, he would say. You will not meet men outside our control. You will not embarrass the family, ever. Aria learned early that rebellion brought consequences. Late-night walks were punished by locked doors. Books she wasn't supposed to touch were confiscated. Even music, if too loud, was silenced. Yet, behind closed eyes, she dreamed of freedom. Lily Cruz was the kind of woman who believed everything she wanted belonged to her. She wanted Adrian Vale. Young, rich, deadly in calmness, he was her prize. Every time a hint suggested Adrian might take interest elsewhere, Lily's blood boiled. She whispered rumors in high society circles, orchestrated accidental meetings, tried subtle sabotage, but Adrian remained untouchable. Still, she watched, waited, and plotted, because nothing was sweeter to her than finally conquering the man everyone else feared. Adrian Vale's name had reached even the secluded halls of the Duvall estate long before anyone met him. Stories whispered in shadows described him: young, impossibly rich, cold, precise, dangerous. No one had ever crossed him without regret. And yet, the entire city seemed drawn to him. Richard Duvall had heard of him in business circles. Aria had read about him in newspapers. Ivan Marino, oblivious to danger, had seen him only in passing but already knew the weight of his presence. The air thickened whenever his name was spoken. It was as though the world paused, acknowledging Adrian Vale's arrival even before he appeared. Ivan Marino never stopped trying, even when the gates grew higher, even when the guards grew sharper, even when the Duvall estate began to feel untouchable. He memorized the rhythms of the mansion, the time the gardeners arrived, the moment the security cars changed shift, the small gap between discipline and distraction. One evening, as the sky bled orange into night, Ivan slipped close enough to the side gardens. He hid behind trimmed hedges, heart pounding, palms damp. He held something small in his hand, a book. It wasn't expensive, but Aria once mentioned loving stories about distant cities and impossible love. Ivan placed it gently beneath the marble bench she often passed during evening walks. Then he stepped back into shadow. From the balcony above, Aria saw it. Not the book at first, the movement. Her breath caught. She leaned forward slightly, veil brushing her lips, eyes narrowing into the dark. For a moment, their gazes met. No words, no sound, just memory and longing. Aria's heart beat faster, not from fear, but recognition. Ivan Marino was still there, still choosing her, still refusing to disappear. But before she could move, footsteps echoed behind her. Guards! And Ivan vanished into the night, leaving only the book behind, and a promise he could never speak aloud. That night, Aria held the book in her room like a forbidden artifact. She traced its cover slowly. It smelled faintly of rain and paper and something human, something real. She lay on her silk bed, veil finally removed, dark hair falling free around her shoulders. Her thoughts wandered where her body could not. What would freedom feel like? Walking streets without guards, laughing without permission, touching hands without consequence. And Ivan, she remembered his eyes at college, not hungry, not greedy, just warm, curious, safe. Her heart whispered a dangerous truth. Not all cages are golden, and not all riches are worth silence. She closed her eyes and imagined life beyond the Duvall walls. And for the first time, she wanted it badly. Lily Cruz didn't just want Adrian Vale. She believed he belonged to her. At a high society charity gathering, Lily arrived draped in diamonds and arrogance. Every step announced her presence. But what disgusted people wasn't her beauty, it was her behavior. She laughed too loudly, mocked too easily, humiliated quietly. A waitress spilled champagne near her shoes. Lily looked down slowly. "Are you blind?" she asked coldly. The girl trembled, apologizing. Lily leaned closer and whispered, "People like you should learn where you're allowed to exist." Then she smiled sweetly to the crowd. Later, she whispered lies about other women destroying reputations for entertainment. She flirted with men already married. She enjoyed taking what didn't belong to her. And when Adrian walked in, her eyes sharpened. She moved like a hunter. She touched his arm without permission. "You always ignore me," Lily purred. Adrian removed her hand calmly. "I ignore noise," he said. People nearby hid smiles, but Lily's humiliation burned. From that moment on, she decided, if she couldn't own Adrian, she would ruin anyone who tried. Richard Duvall sensed change in his daughter, not rebellion, but awakening. She lingered longer at windows, asked softer, dangerous questions, looked outward instead of inward. So he tightened control, more guards, shorter outings, stricter schedules. "You are drifting," Richard told her quietly in his study. Aria stood still. "I am breathing," she replied softly. Richard's eyes hardened. Breathing invites chaos. He turned away, ending the conversation like a verdict. Aria realized something painful. Her father wasn't protecting her. He was preserving her, like a rare object, not a daughter. Far across the city, Adrian Vale stood on a rooftop overlooking Milan. Cars moved like veins below him, power pulsed in silence. He wasn't thinking about love or marriage. He was thinking about control, about alliances, about bloodlines, about assets disguised as people. His assistant approached. "Mr. Vale, Richard Duvall has been asking discreet questions about you." Adrian didn't turn. "Let him." A pause. "And his daughter?" Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. "Information first, emotion later." Yet something curious happened. He didn't dismiss her name. He remembered it. Aria Duvall. And in the world of Adrian Vale, remembering was never harmless. That night, Aria didn't sleep. The mansion was too quiet. Not peaceful quiet, the kind that presses on your chest. She lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling where soft lights reflected from hidden panels. Her room looked like something from a luxury magazine. Glass walls, velvet chairs, silk curtain, but none of it felt like home. She turned to the side and picked up Ivan's book again. She hadn't opened it yet. She was afraid of what it might awaken. Slowly, she did. The pages smelled new and warm. Cities, people, lovers who chose each other without permission. Her lips curved into the smallest smile. "Must be nice," she whispered. She walked to the window, city lights stretching endlessly below. Somewhere out there, People lived without asking their fathers for permission to breathe. For the first time, Aria admitted something dangerous. She didn't just want safety anymore. She wanted choice. Ivan Marino was reckless when it came to Aria, not because he was stupid, but because love makes courage careless. Another evening, dressed like a delivery worker, he approached the Duvall estate with a small backpack on his shoulder. The guards barely glanced at him. He passed through the outer gate, his heart hammered. Every step closer to the house felt illegal and necessary at the same time. Near the side entrance, he stopped. He whispered her name under his breath. Aria. Then, a door opened above. Aria stepped onto the terrace. Their eyes locked. Shock, hope, fear. For a second, the world froze. Ivan lifted his hand slightly, like he wanted to wave but didn't dare. Aria's fingers tightened on the rail. Ivan, she breathed too softly for anyone else to hear. But then, footsteps, guards. Aria's face changed instantly. She turned and disappeared inside. And Ivan ran before courage turned into disaster. Lily Cruz didn't compete fairly. She destroyed quietly. At another elite gathering, she spotted a young socialite talking about Adrian Vale with admiration. Lily smiled, then leaned closer. You know he hates desperate women, right? The girl blinked. I was just. He laughs at girls who chase him, Lily continued sweetly. But don't worry, some of us learn the hard way. Later, Lily accidentally spilled wine on the same girl's white dress, ruining her night. People noticed, and they didn't like it. But Lily didn't care, because jealousy made her cruel, and cruelty made her bold. When she saw Adrian across the room again, she whispered to herself, if I can't have you, no one will. And that thought alone made her dangerous. Richard Duvall wasn't only controlling, he was afraid. Late one night, he sat alone in his office, city lights reflecting off glass walls. Files were spread across his desk. One name appeared again and again. Adrian Vale. Richard leaned back slowly. He had wealth, he had power, but Adrian had influence. And influence always crushed money. Richard whispered to himself, if he looks at Aria. He stopped the thought. For the first time, Richard wondered if protecting his daughter meant something darker than love. Maybe he was preparing her for a storm he couldn't stop. Adrian Vale didn't chase people. People drifted into his orbit. From the top floor of a private skyscraper lounge, he watched Milan breathe below him. His suit was dark, perfect, effortless. An assistant approached quietly. Mr. Vale, the Duvall family has been mentioned in several circles. Adrian sipped his drink. Richard Duvall, he said calmly. Yes, and his daughter. Adrian paused. Not long, but long enough to matter. Aria, he repeated softly, testing the name. He turned to the window again. Somewhere, without knowing it, Aria Duvall was already walking toward his world. And Adrian Vale never ignored what destiny placed in his path. Morning arrived quietly inside the Duvall mansion. Aria sat before her mirror while a maid brushed her long dark hair. Sunlight spilled through the curtains, painting her reflection in gold. She looked calm, but inside her chest, something restless kept moving. Father says you're not going out today, the maid said softly. Aria's fingers paused. Not even the library? She asked. The maid shook her head. Important guests are coming. Aria exhaled slowly. Every day felt scheduled, controlled, measured. After the maid left, Aria stood and walked to her closet. Instead of the usual modest dresses, her fingers hovered over something different, a soft modern blazer, slim trousers, heels that whispered confidence instead of obedience. She smiled faintly, not rebellion, just breathing. When she stepped into the hallway, the guards stared in surprise. For once, Aria Duvall didn't look hidden. She looked awake. Richard Duvall's phone hadn't stopped ringing since dawn. Banks, partners, political contacts, all asking the same question in different ways. What is your connection with Adrian Vale? Richard sat behind his glass desk, jaw tight. Vale's name carried weight now. Not street rumors, corporate whispers. Strategic alliances. Dangerous opportunity. One caller spoke carefully. Richard, Vale is interested in expansion. If he steps into your circle, You either rise or disappear. Richard ended the call slowly. He stood and walked to the window. For years, he controlled Aria's life because the world was cruel. But now the world was knocking harder than he expected, and protecting her might require something far heavier than walls and veils. Ivan Marino didn't know how to love safely. He parked his old car across the street from the Duvall estate. Engine off, heart racing. Through binoculars, he watched the gates. Aria appeared briefly near the garden. His chest tightened. She looks different, he whispered. Stronger, brighter. Without thinking, Ivan left the car and walked closer, hiding between trees. Every step carried risk. Every breath carried hope. Then he saw her. Aria sat alone on a marble bench, sunlight warming her skin. Ivan stepped out quietly. Aria. She froze, turned. Their eyes met again, this time closer. Ivan, you shouldn't be here. I know, he said softly, but I couldn't stay away. Silence wrapped them, danger and longing standing inches apart. Before either could move closer, a guard shouted. Ivan backed away instantly, but before leaving, he said the words he had carried for years. Whatever happens, I'm still here. And he vanished. Aria stayed frozen, heart louder than fear. Lily Cruz never watched quietly. She stalked opportunity. At a fashion charity event, she overheard staff whispering about Aria Duvall. Lily's lips curved slowly. Later, she leaned into a journalist. Funny how innocent girls pretend to be saints, Lily said casually, especially when they meet boys behind their father's back. The journalist hesitated. Who? Lily smiled sweetly. Duvall's daughter. That night, gossip bloomed. Not loud, but poisonous. By morning, Richard's office received subtle calls, questions, doubts. Lily Cruz watched from her penthouse balcony, wine in hand, smiling like a queen of quiet chaos. Let's see how perfect you really are, Aria. Adrian Vale didn't plan meetings. Meetings happened around him. At a private business lounge, Richard Duvall arrived late, nerves hidden behind politeness. Then Adrian walked in, tall, calm, young, dangerously composed. Their eyes met. Richard stood. Mr. Vale. Adrian shook his hand firmly. Richard Duvall, Adrian said. You protect your family well. Richard stiffened slightly. They sat. Drinks arrived. Silence spoke before words did. I hear your daughter is rare, Adrian said casually. Richard's fingers tightened on the glass. She is private. Adrian smiled faintly. So am I. Outside the window, the city burned with life. Inside, two worlds quietly aligned. Without knowing it, Aria's future just took its first real breath. That night, Aria sensed change without knowing why. She stood by her bedroom window again, city lights blinking like questions. Something was moving. Her life no longer felt paused. It felt pulled. Ivan's face lingered in her mind, but so did something new, something unknown. Somewhere, Adrian Vale was now connected to her world, and Aria Duvall, still untouched by destiny, was already standing at its edge. She whispered into the quiet, My life is about to change. And the night listened. The Duvall mansion no longer felt the same. It wasn't louder. It wasn't brighter. But something invisible had entered the walls. Boxes arrived. Fabric samples. Jewelry catalogs. Designers whispered instead of spoke. Aria noticed it first when she walked through the hallway and saw a woman measuring the marble staircase. Excuse me, Aria said softly. What's happening? The woman smiled politely. Preparations, miss. Preparations for what? The woman hesitated, then answered carefully. Your future. Aria's heart skipped. She walked faster, searching for her father. Richard stood in his office, speaking low into the phone. We move quietly, yes. No public announcement yet. When he turned and saw Aria, the call ended. Father, she said. Why are people changing the house? Richard stared at her. For the first time in years, he didn't answer immediately. Finally, he said, Because your life is about to become protected. Aria swallowed. That sounds like a prison. Richard's jaw tightened. Sometimes protection looks like that. Aria turned away slowly, realizing something enormous had begun without her permission. Ivan Marino sat in a bar that smelled like regret. Empty glasses lined the counter. His hands shook slightly. On his phone was a picture of Aria smiling at college, hair loose, eyes alive. He whispered, "They're taking you from me." Another drink burned his throat. The bartender glanced at him. "You all right, man?" Ivan laughed bitterly. "No." Outside, rain tapped against the windows like warnings. Ivan stood, nearly losing balance, and dialed a number. Aria's phone vibrated in her room. She answered softly. "Ivan?" His voice cracked. "You're getting married, aren't you?" Silence. "I heard people talking," he continued. "Boxes, designers, security." Aria closed her eyes. "I don't know everything yet," she said. Ivan laughed without humor. "They're selling you. That's not fair." "Then run with me," he suddenly said. Aria froze. "Ivan." "Tonight," he pleaded. "We disappear. No guards, no deals. Just you and me." Her heart hurt, but her voice stayed calm. "I can't." "Why?" "Because running doesn't make you free. It just makes you hunted." Ivan slammed his glass down. "So you'll marry a ghost instead?" Tears welled in Aria's eyes. "I'm sorry." The line went quiet. Ivan stared at the phone long after the call ended. Love, when trapped, becomes fury. Lily Cruz never waited for invitations. At an elite business gala, she arrived dressed like danger wrapped in silk. The room paused when she entered, but Lily's eyes searched only for one man, Adrian Vale. He stood near the balcony, suit perfect, posture calm, expression unreadable. Lily approached with confidence sharpened like a blade. "Adrian," she purred, "you're hard to catch." He looked at her briefly. "Some things aren't meant to be caught." She smiled. "Everything is, if you try hard enough." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I hear you're expanding your circle." "Business expands itself." She brushed imaginary dust from his sleeve. "Then let me be part of it." Adrian's eyes darkened slightly, but his tone stayed cold. "I don't mix interest with distraction." Lily's smile twitched. "So I'm a distraction?" "No," he said calmly. "You're obvious." That stung, but Lily didn't retreat. She leaned in again. "You'll change your mind." Adrian finally turned fully to her. "People who try to own me usually regret it." Lily watched him walk away, her nails pressed into her palm. "If I can't own you," she whispered, "I'll ruin what you touch." A week later, the word finally arrived. Wedding, not whispered, spoken. Aria sat in a private salon as women pinned fabrics around her shoulders. White silk brushed her skin. She stared into the mirror. "Who is he?" she finally asked. The stylist hesitated. "Your future husband." "That's not a name." Silence again. Later that night, Aria confronted her father. "Who am I marrying?" Richard looked exhausted. "Someone powerful enough to keep you safe." "Safe from what?" Richard's eyes darkened. "From the world you don't see." Aria stepped closer. "Do I get to choose?" Richard whispered, "No." The word fell like stone. Aria turned away, heart pounding. For the first time in her life, love felt farther than fear. That night, Ivan didn't drink. He drove straight to the Duvall estate. Security lights burned across the gates, but Ivan climbed anyway. He reached the garden where Aria once sat. She appeared moments later, shocked. "Ivan, you'll get killed." "I don't care," he said breathless. He grabbed her hands. "Tell me you're not doing this." Her lips trembled. "I don't have a choice." "Then make one." "Ivan, love isn't enough when the world is armed." He stared into her eyes. "Then let me fight the world." She slowly pulled her hands away. "You lose." Silence stretched. Ivan nodded bitterly. "Then promise me one thing." "What?" "Don't forget who loved you before power did." Tears slipped down Aria's face. Ivan stepped back into the shadows, and fate moved closer. Richard Duvall no longer slept well. At night, his office lights stayed on while the rest of the mansion slept. Papers covered his desk, contracts, protection clauses, silent threats written politely. Every signature he placed felt heavier than the last. His phone buzzed again. A voice spoke calmly. "Mr. Duvall, Vale doesn't wait forever." Richard closed his eyes. "My daughter isn't a product. She's a future," the voice replied, "and futures are negotiated." The call ended. Richard stood slowly and stared at Aria's childhood photo on the wall. I built walls to protect you, he whispered. Now the walls are closing in. For the first time, Richard Duvall understood that love alone could not fight power. Lily Cruz upgraded her obsession. At another elite gathering, she positioned herself beside Adrian Vale again, wearing danger like perfume. Funny, she said softly, how men marry business, not women. Adrian didn't look at her. Funny how some women confuse proximity with relevance. Lily smiled anyway. You don't even know her yet. Adrian finally turned. And you already hate her. Lily leaned closer. She's fragile. You need someone stronger. Adrian's voice lowered. I decide what I need. Her smile cracked for half a second, then hardened. If she disappoints you, remember who warned you. Adrian stepped away without reply. Lily watched him go, jealousy poisoning her elegance. Enjoy your bride, she whispered, while you can. The wedding date leaked quietly. Ivan found out from a stranger's mouth. Duvall's daughter? Marrying Vale. Ivan froze. That night, he stood outside the mansion again, rain soaking his jacket. Aria appeared under the lights. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. I can't breathe without seeing you, Ivan replied. His eyes were red. They're taking you tomorrow. She nodded slowly. Ivan grabbed her hands. Come with me. One last chance. Her voice shook. Ivan, stop. Why? Because love isn't always freedom. Tears rolled down his face. So power wins? Aria whispered. Sometimes survival does. Ivan stepped back slowly. He nodded. I won't stop loving you. Then he turned and walked away, knowing this was goodbye. The mansion woke before the sun. Makeup artists, guards, stylists, white fabric everywhere. Aria sat still while hands transformed her. The mirror showed a woman, not a girl. Her veil rested softly on her hair. A maid whispered, You look perfect. Aria didn't answer. Inside her chest, fear and calm fought quietly. Richard entered slowly. He stopped when he saw her. His voice broke. My little girl. Aria looked at him. Is he cruel? Richard hesitated. No, just powerful. She nodded. That's scarier. He held her hands. I did this so you could live. Aria whispered, then I'll live bravely, and stood. Across the city, Adrian Vale dressed without emotion. His suit was black, clean, perfect. A guard asked, Nervous, sir? Adrian adjusted his cuff. I don't fear alliances. Marriage is different. Adrian paused. Marriage is still strategy. Yet something unfamiliar touched his silence. Not fear, curiosity. He looked out at the city. Somewhere inside those walls waited a woman he had never met. And destiny rarely stays polite. The hall glowed. White roses, crystal lights, security everywhere. Guests whispered. Music rose slowly. Aria stood at the entrance, veil trembling. The doors opened. Everyone turned. At the altar stood Adrian Vale. Tall, still, dangerously calm. For the first time, their eyes met. The world paused. Aria felt it. Not love, not fear, impact. Adrian's gaze held hers. Cold curiosity touching fragile courage. She walked forward, step by step, toward a man built from power and silence, toward a life already rewritten. The priest spoke, but destiny listened harder. And as Aria Duvall reached Adrian Vale, the doors of the Vale estate closed behind them with a quiet final sound. Outside, the city still celebrated. Inside, everything became still. Aria stepped into the master suite slowly, her heels sinking into soft carpet. The room was massive glass walls, city lights stretching endlessly beyond them, soft golden lamps glowing against marble floors. It looked less like a bedroom, and more like a kingdom. She removed her veil at last and placed it gently on the table, fingers trembling. Behind her, Adrian entered and shut the door. Click! That sound echoed louder than music ever had. Neither of them spoke. Adrian loosened his cufflinks calmly, placing them beside his watch. Movements precise, controlled. Aria stood near the window, unsure where to place herself. In a room that suddenly felt too large for two strangers. Minutes passed. Finally, she whispered, So, this is us now. Adrian didn't turn yet. This is an alliance, he said quietly. Before it becomes anything else. She faced him. Do alliances sleep in the same room? He finally looked at her. His eyes weren't cruel. They were careful. You're safe here, Aria, but safety doesn't demand closeness. She swallowed. So you won't touch me? Adrian paused. Not until you ask. The words surprised her. Silence returned heavier, calmer. Adrian removed his jacket and placed it over a chair, then gestured toward the bed. You should rest. Tomorrow begins early. Aria nodded slowly. As she lay down, the city lights reflected in her eyes. Marriage hadn't begun with fire. It had begun with distance, and somehow, that frightened her more. The bed felt wider than it looked. Aria lay stiff on her side, the silk sheet pulled to her chest, eyes open in the dark. Every sound felt louder than usual, the soft hum of the city, the faint movement of fabric, the controlled breathing of the man beside her. Adrian sat against the headboard, already awake, scrolling through his phone like sleep had never been part of his life. Aria's fingers clenched the sheet. She wasn't nervous about intimacy. She was nervous about power. She whispered, "Do you ever turn off?" Adrian didn't look at her. No, she swallowed. In her mind, Ivan's face appeared gentle, reckless, human. She turned her head slightly. Why did you marry me? The question floated between them. Adrian lowered the phone slowly. Because your father needed protection. And I needed loyalty. Her chest tightened. So I'm a deal. He met her eyes. You're a responsibility. The word pressed against her ribs. She nodded slowly, hiding the hurt. Inside her, she whispered Ivan's name like a secret prayer. Beside her, Adrian returned to his screen. Two married people, connected by law, separated by fear. Morning arrived without kindness. Aria woke to the sound of fabric moving. Adrian stood already dressed, fastening his cufflinks with military precision. No sleep in his eyes, no warmth in his posture. She pushed herself up slowly. You don't rest? He didn't turn. Rest is weakness. She hesitated. That sounds lonely. He finally glanced at her reflection in the mirror. Loneliness keeps people alive. She studied him quietly. This man didn't need love. He needed control. He handed her a black tablet. Your schedule. She frowned. I have one already. Not anymore. She took it. Meetings, dinners, flights, security. Her life rewritten in bullets. You're coming with me today, he said. To where? To see what you married into. Her stomach tightened. She masked it with a calm nod. I'll be ready. Inside, fear whispered louder than obedience. The black cars waited like soldiers. Aria stepped inside one beside Adrian, hands folded tightly in her lap. The city passed like a foreign country. At Adrian's corporate tower, doors opened before him. Inside, men paused when Aria entered. Not admiration. Assessment. One whispered carelessly, "She looks easy to break." Adrian stopped walking. Silence hit the hallway like impact. He turned calmly. Easy things don't survive near me. The man paled. Adrian continued forward. Aria stared at him, heart pounding. You didn't have to do that. He replied without emotion. I don't allow damage to what's mine. Her pulse skipped. Mine. Not romantic, not gentle, but absolute. In the elevator, she stood still, hiding how much the word frightened her, and strangely, how much it protected her. That night, Aria stood alone in the penthouse kitchen, holding a glass she hadn't touched. Adrian entered quietly behind her. You didn't drink. I don't trust things that blur my thinking. He paused. Smart. She turned slightly. You don't trust people either. He poured himself whiskey. People fail. Her voice softened. Even you? He looked at her then. Long. Sharp. Yes. That surprised her. She swallowed. I loved someone once. The words escaped before she could stop them. Adrian didn't react. Past tense. He's still alive, she whispered. Adrian's jaw tightened barely. Alive doesn't mean present. She faced the city again. I didn't marry you with my heart. I know, he said calmly. Silence filled the space again. Not enemies, not lovers, just two dangerous strangers learning the weight of each other. And somewhere in the city, Ivan still breathed her name. Ivan Marino didn't belong in Adrian Vale's world. That was obvious the moment he stood across the street from Vale Tower, rain soaking his jacket, eyes fixed on glass and steel that reached the clouds. Inside that building, Aria now lived. Ivan clenched his jaw. Cars rolled in and out like silent weapons. Then he saw her. Aria stepped out beside Adrian. No veil, no hiding, elegant, controlled. She didn't look imprisoned. That hurt worse. Ivan whispered, "She's becoming his." Adrian opened her car door. His hand hovered near her back, not touching, but guarding. Ivan felt something ugly twist in his chest. Love mixed with helplessness becomes danger. Ivan pulled his hood lower and disappeared into the crowd. But he didn't leave. He stayed close, too close. That night, Aria's phone vibrated. Unknown number. She hesitated, then opened it. "Ivan, don't panic. I just need you to know I'm still here." Her heart slammed. She typed quickly, "Aria, you shouldn't be." Seconds passed. "Ivan, you married power. I married patience." Her fingers trembled. "Aria, Ivan, this is dangerous. Ivan, so is losing you." Aria locked the phone, chest tight. Across the room, Adrian noticed. "Problem?" She masked it instantly. "No." He studied her face longer than usual, but said nothing. Power notices silence. Security cameras flickered softly around the Vale estate. Ivan watched their rhythm from a nearby rooftop. Guard rotation, blind spots, timing. He wasn't trained. He was desperate. Late that night, he slipped past the outer wall and reached the garden. Aria stood there alone, breathing cool air. "Ivan," she whispered when she saw him. "You shouldn't be here." He stepped closer. "I had to see if you were real." She grabbed his arm. "They'll kill you. They already took my life." He looked at her face, familiar, changed, stronger. "Are you okay?" She hesitated. That answer said everything. "I'm alive," she whispered. He laughed bitterly. "That's not the same." They stood too close, too long, and somewhere above them, a camera tilted. Adrian Vale never relied on luck. At 2:17 a.m., his security tablet vibrated. "Alert! Motion anomaly, South Garden." He dressed silently. Outside, guards froze when Adrian raised his hand. He watched the camera feed. Two figures. Close. Too close. Adrian's jaw hardened. "Who is that man?" A guard whispered. "Unknown. Civilian." Adrian's voice dropped. "No one walks into my house without permission." He stepped forward into the night. Not angry. Controlled. Dangerous. And for the first time since marriage, someone from Aria's past had entered Adrian Vale's present. Aria felt it before she saw him. The air changed. Ivan stiffened. Someone's coming. Footsteps. Controlled. Heavy with authority. Aria's breath caught. Ivan whispered, "If he hurts you." "He won't," she said quickly. But fear disagreed. From the shadows, Adrian's silhouette appeared. Tall, still, unforgiving. His eyes locked on Ivan. Then slowly, on Aria. The past, the present, and power, all standing in one garden, and none of them ready for what came next. After the garden incident, nothing felt the same. Ivan was removed quietly. No blood, no drama, just disappearance. Aria didn't ask how. Adrian didn't explain. But the silence between them grew heavier. The next morning, Aria stood by the window of the penthouse. City stretching endlessly below. Her hands trembled slightly as she held her coffee. Behind her, Adrian adjusted his cufflinks. "You won't be staying in today." She turned. "Where are we going?" "Meeting investors, politicians." "I'm not part of your world." Adrian walked closer, voice low. "You're my wife. That makes you part of everything." She met his eyes. "I don't even know you." He paused. Neither did he know her. "Then we'll start correcting that mistake." For the first time, he didn't sound cold. He sounded curious. The gala was brutal with attention. Flashes, whispers, power watching power. Aria stayed beside Adrian, her posture calm even while her heart raced. A drunk politician leaned too close. "You're prettier than rumors say." Before Aria could respond, Adrian stepped in. His hand didn't grab, didn't shout. He simply placed himself between them. She's not part of your entertainment. The man laughed nervously and walked away. Aria blinked. You didn't have to do that. Adrian looked at her. Yes, I did. She studied his face, sharp, controlled, but something underneath. Not cruelty. Ownership mixed with responsibility. For the first time since marriage, she felt safe beside him, and she hated that she did. That night, rain trapped them inside the penthouse. Electric storm, city glowing below. Aria sat on the couch scrolling through her phone. Adrian poured whiskey, then stopped. He poured water instead and handed it to her. She looked surprised. You noticed? He shrugged. I noticed things. Silence fell. Not awkward. Different. She finally spoke. Why did you marry me? He didn't answer immediately. Then, because power is lonely, and loyalty is rare. She turned. That's not love. No, he said honestly. But love grows where loyalty survives. Her heart shifted slightly. Not enough to call love. Enough to feel something unfamiliar. Comfort. The next day at a charity event, Lily Cruz appeared. Perfect smile, expensive perfume, dangerous ambition. She walked straight to Adrian. Adrian, darling, you disappeared after the wedding. She touched his sleeve. Aria watched quietly. Adrian didn't move away, but his eyes drifted to Aria. Lily noticed, smiled sharper. You chose a quiet bride. Interesting taste. Aria stayed calm. Adrian finally spoke. She's not quiet. She's selective. Aria's breath caught. Lily's smile faltered for half a second. Adrian stepped closer to Aria, not touching, claiming space. And strangely, Aria felt warmth spread in her chest. Jealousy wasn't supposed to feel protective, yet it did. Late that night, Aria stood on the balcony. Adrian joined her. Neither spoke. Finally, she whispered, You're different than I imagined. He looked at the city. So are you. Their shoulders almost touched. Almost. She realized something terrifying. She wasn't scared of him anymore. She was curious. And curiosity is how love sneaks in. Adrian felt it too. Not passion, not desire, something quieter, something dangerous. Attachment. And neither of them noticed. They were already changing. Morning crept softly into the penthouse. Aria woke before the city. She padded barefoot across the marble floor, wearing one of Adrian's oversized shirts without thinking about it. The fabric carried a scent she hadn't learned yet, but already recognized. She moved into the kitchen and froze. Adrian was already there, hair slightly undone, reading financial reports on his tablet. For a second, neither spoke. His eyes lifted, paused, noticed the shirt, the way it slipped off her shoulder. Something in his jaw tightened. Did you sleep? She nodded. For once, he closed the tablet. That's good. Such a small sentence. Yet Aria felt heat under her skin. He wasn't asking out of duty. He sounded like he cared. She poured coffee. So do you ever rest? He smiled faintly. Rarely. She surprised herself. You should. He watched her, not commanding, not cold, listening. And for the first time, Adrian realized he liked her voice in the morning. Lily Cruz never lost. She simply changed tactics. That afternoon, Aria received a delivery, a designer dress, a note from someone who knows Adrian better than you ever will. Aria frowned. Hours later, at the business dinner, Lily appeared wearing the exact same dress. Identical cut, identical shade. Only hers was tailored to dominate attention. The room whispered. Comparison sparked instantly. Aria felt exposed. But before she could retreat, Adrian stepped beside her. He studied both dresses once, then calmly removed his jacket, placed it over Aria's shoulders. This one looks better with protection. Lily's lips stiffened. The room noticed. Aria's breath shook. He leaned close. Never let her choose your confidence. Her pulse answered before her mind did. Ivan didn't disappear. He waited. One rainy night, Aria stepped out to the garden terrace alone. A voice followed her. Still trapped? She froze. Ivan stepped from shadow, eyes tired, face thinner. You shouldn't be here. He smiled bitterly. Funny, you used to say that to your father. She crossed her arms. You're risking your life. I already lost it when you married him. Silence. Rain whispered between them. I loved you, Aria. Her chest tightened. And you still do. He stepped closer. Before Aria could reply, a presence shifted behind them. Adrian, not angry, not shouting, just standing there, danger quiet in his eyes. Ivan looked at him. So the king watches his queen now. Adrian answered calmly. She's not your past anymore. Ivan met Aria's gaze once. Sad, soft, then left. Adrian didn't chase, but his hand clenched slowly. Jealousy doesn't scream, it settles. Back inside, silence cracked. You shouldn't meet him. Aria turned. You don't own my past. Adrian exhaled slowly. I own your safety. She shot back. He loved me. That word struck. Adrian's jaw flexed. And I married you. She laughed bitterly. Those are not the same thing. He stepped closer. Maybe not, but they are becoming harder to separate. Their faces were inches apart, breath mixing, heat rising. Neither touched, neither stepped back. And in that space, something dangerous lived. Want. They both noticed. They both pretended not to. That night, thunder shook the sky. Aria couldn't sleep. She sat curled on the couch. Rain beat against glass. Then footsteps. Adrian appeared with a blanket. Without words, he placed it around her. Sat beside her, not touching, just present. Minutes passed. Then she whispered, You don't have to stay. He answered quietly, I want to. Her eyes closed slowly. For the first time, she leaned against him. Not romantically, not deliberately, naturally. Adrian froze. Then carefully, he didn't move away. And in that quiet storm, two enemies of love forgot they were supposed to resist. Morning arrived quietly over the city. The rain from the night before left the glass windows fogged. The skyline blurred like a painting. Aria woke on the couch, still wrapped in the blanket Adrian had placed on her. She felt warmth, not from the room, from him. Her head rested lightly against Adrian's shoulder. At some point in the night, he had leaned closer without realizing. Neither of them had moved. She opened her eyes slowly. Adrian was awake, not working, not on his phone, just watching the city. Then he noticed her. Their eyes met. Neither spoke. Something had changed. She shifted gently but didn't pull away. Did I disturb you? She asked. No, Adrian replied softly. You made it easier to sleep. The words surprised even him. Aria smiled faintly. And for the first time since the marriage, the silence between them felt warm instead of awkward. Later that afternoon, Adrian took Aria with him to a high-level investors meeting. Black cars lined the private entrance. Security everywhere. Aria stepped out beside him, wearing a simple but elegant dress. Nervous, but Adrian didn't let her walk behind. He placed his hand gently at her lower back, guiding, claiming. Inside, powerful men and women turned. Whispers followed. Adrian never released her. When someone addressed him, he answered calmly, This is my wife, Aria. Not introduced, presented. And each time he said it, Aria felt something bloom inside her chest. At one point she leaned closer and whispered, You don't have to keep holding me. He tilted his head. I want them to know you're mine. Her breath hitched. Not possession, protection, affection, love hiding in confidence. Lily Cruz watched from across the hall. Her nails dug into her palm. She approached Aria with false sweetness. So you finally learned how to look like a wife. Before Aria could respond, Adrian turned slowly, cold, controlled, deadly calm. Careful, Lily. She laughed. You sound protective. I am. The room quieted. He stepped closer to Aria, took her hand, and said clearly, She's not temporary. She's not weak. And she's not someone you compare yourself to. Lily's smile cracked. Aria felt Adrian's thumb brush against hers. Reassurance, affection, territory. Lily walked away humiliated. The viewers would hate her now and love Adrian more. That night, the penthouse felt quieter. No guards inside, no meetings, just them. Aria stood on the balcony, city lights glowing below. Adrian joined her. Neither rushed. Then she spoke. I used to think you were terrifying. He smiled faintly. I still am. She laughed softly. No, Now you're just safe. That word stopped him. He turned fully toward her. Aria. She faced him, heart racing. I don't love Ivan anymore. The name floated between them. He belongs to who I was, not who I am now. Adrian didn't celebrate, didn't boast. He only asked quietly, and who are you now? She looked into his eyes. Your wife. Because I choose to be. Silence. Then Adrian reached out. Not fast, not aggressive. He touched her cheek gently, like he was afraid to scare her away. I didn't plan to love you, he said, but you walked into my life and refused to leave quietly. Her eyes softened. And you stopped being cold when I stopped being afraid. They leaned closer, foreheads touching, breathing shared, love without rush. From that night on, things changed. Adrian waited for her, texted her first, sat beside her instead of across, protected her loudly, loved her quietly. Aria stopped pretending. She smiled more, spoke freely, walked beside him, not behind him. Even danger respected their bond. In a world of violence and power, they chose each other, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. And love, once born inside darkness, shines brighter than safety ever could. The penthouse was unusually still that night, not the tense silence Adrian's world often carried, the kind filled with danger and secrets, but a softer kind, where the city seemed to pause just long enough to listen. Aria stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the lights of the city stretch endlessly beneath her. Cars moved like glowing veins, people living lives unaware that hers had just crossed into something irreversible. She held a glass of wine but hadn't tasted it. Behind her, the door closed quietly. No guards, no assistants, no business calls, only Adrian. He loosened his cufflinks slowly, not out of habit but intention. For the first time in years, he wasn't acting like a king walking into territory. He was acting like a man entering his own home. You always come here when your mind is loud, he said softly. Aria smiled without turning. I used to come here to dream of escape. He stepped closer. And now, she finally faced him. Now I come here because I don't want to escape anymore. The air between them shifted. Adrian studied her face. No fear, no resistance, only honesty. Aria, when our fathers arranged this marriage, I swore I wouldn't turn you into another prisoner of my world. She moved closer. And you didn't. He hesitated. A dangerous man hesitating over love. I need to hear it from you, he said quietly. Not duty, not habit, choice. Aria lifted her hands and rested them against his chest, feeling the steady beat beneath. I choose you, Adrian Vale, not because I was sold, not because I'm afraid, but because somewhere between your silence and your protection, I fell. His breath slowed. He cupped her face gently, like something fragile instead of owned. Their kiss came slowly, not hunger, not command, but promise. That night, the marriage stopped being paperwork. It became connection. It became belonging. It became real, not rushed, not forced, just two guarded souls finally trusting the same space. Morning entered quietly through silk curtains. Golden light brushed the walls and settled gently across the bed. Aria woke first. For a second, she didn't move. She simply listened. Adrian's breathing beside her was slow, human, unguarded, not the controlled rhythm of a man who ruled empires, but of someone finally resting. She turned her head and studied him. Strong jaw, relaxed brow, no armor, just man. When his eyes opened, he didn't pull away. He smiled faintly. Good morning, wife. She laughed softly. You sound proud. I am, he replied. He reached for her without thinking, pulling her closer like the world outside didn't matter yet. Aria rested her head against his shoulder. In that moment, she realized something quietly powerful. Love didn't enter their marriage like fire. It entered like peace. And peace, for people raised in survival, was the rarest luxury. Lily Cruz never wanted Adrian's heart. She wanted his throne. Long before Aria entered his life, Lily had been weaving silent traps. She bribed Adrian's partners to leak fake scandals, paid photographers to spread rumors about Aria's past, sent anonymous threats to make her feel unsafe, tried convincing investors that Aria was unstable, and finally attempted to sabotage Adrian's largest international shipping contract. Her goal wasn't jealousy, it was erasure. Adrian discovered everything. He summoned Lily to his private office. She entered confident, perfume sharp, smile rehearsed. He slid a thick folder across the desk. Bank transfers, messages, recorded calls, witness statements. Her face drained slowly. "You tried to destroy my wife," Adrian said calmly. Lily stood. "I was protecting you." Adrian rose. "You were protecting your ego." He didn't shout. He punished. Her companies were seized. Her accounts frozen worldwide. Her influence erased from elite networks. Her allies abandoned overnight. Security escorted her out, not screaming, not glamorous, just shaking, invisible, irrelevant. The cruelest punishment for someone who lived for power was being forgotten. Aria heard later. She didn't smile. She simply felt safe. Ivan packed one suitcase. That was all he needed for a new life. His apartment near the old university still smelled like coffee and memories. He sat on the bed and stared at his phone before finally typing, "I'm leaving the country today." Seconds later, Aria replied, "Where?" "Spain. New job. Fresh start." Pause. "Can I see you before you go?" "Yes." The airport hummed with endings. Suitcases rolled. Voices crossed languages. Aria walked through the terminal, Adrian a few steps behind her in quiet respect. Ivan spotted her first. He looked lighter, not happy but settled. "You came," he said softly. "I couldn't not." They stood awkwardly, then smiled at the silence. "I once imagined us running through airports together," Ivan said. "And now we finally know where we belong." He glanced at Adrian. "You take care of her." Adrian nodded. "I will." Ivan hugged Aria. "Not desperate, not clinging. Real. Be happy, not brave," he whispered. She replied, "You taught me both." The boarding call echoed. Ivan lifted his bag and walked toward another country, another life, another story. Aria watched until he vanished into distance. Closure isn't loud, it's quiet acceptance. Cancer arrived quietly, not dramatic, not loud, just relentless. Richard Duvall lay in a hospital bed where wealth meant nothing. Machines replaced control. Aria entered slowly. Her father looked smaller, human. She sat beside him. His voice trembled. "I hid you from life instead of preparing you for it." Tears rolled. "I sold you because I was afraid." Aria held his hand. "You also raised me strong enough to survive it." Adrian stood behind her, respectful. "Family, not mafia." Richard looked at him. "Take care of her better than I did." Adrian nodded. "With my life." Richard closed his eyes peacefully, not defeated, forgiven. The night didn't rush them. It simply held them. Aria stood beside Adrian on the quiet balcony, the city glowing softly beneath their feet. No guards nearby, no business calls, no danger knocking at the door. Just the slow sound of wind brushing against glass and steel. For the first time in a long while, Adrian wasn't thinking about enemies, deals, or power. He was thinking about peace. Aria leaned into him, her voice low and gentle. "Do you ever miss the life before me?" Adrian smiled, faint but real. "I don't remember it anymore." She looked up at him. "Not even a little?" He shook his head. "Before you, I survived. With you, I live." The words settled between them like a promise the world couldn't steal. Below them, the city kept moving, strangers chasing dreams, lovers finding courage, broken people learning how to heal. Aria closed her eyes. Some stories begin in love, others begin in pain, but the best ones end in choice. And tonight, they chose each other, not because fate forced them, not because fear trapped them, but because love finally felt like home. The lights of the city shimmered, the wind carried silence, and somewhere between danger and devotion, their forever quietly began.
And that's where tonight's story rests. Not in power, not in wealth, but in the quiet courage of choosing love when the world expects war. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay close. Because here, every heartbeat hides another unforgettable tale. Until next time, sleep with the story.